Hello, everyone. As we get started here and people keep logging in, I just want to take a second to introduce myself. My name is Cody Ramler, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker um, in your EAP network, brought to you by Integrated Behavioral Health. Hopefully, you're all here today to talk about finding harmony between being a parent and a professional. Yes, I think that is a thing. I'm going to caveat this with if any of you have found the magic miracle solution to finding this harmony, let me know at the end of this presentation because I am still looking for it myself. But I do have some suggestions and some things that may be helpful. I also, what better platform to be addressing these challenges in, but I also have all three of my children at home upstairs. So hopefully between their dad and their grandma, they can be monitored, but you may hear them running around. If you hear screaming, I promise no one is injured too badly, and they are being well taken care of. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we just make it work, right? You keep getting out of bed. Sometimes it's just because, there's a cup of coffee downstairs. Maybe it's a glass of wine downstairs at the end of a hard day. Whatever it is, keep going. Next slide, please. So there is perhaps no more delicate balance than being a parent and a working professional. We could probably all of us here agree on that today. So many of us struggle with how to divide our time, our energy, our attention. This training will discuss the realities of the modern working landscape for parents and how to approach the balance in a new, hopefully more successful way. We'll review some strategies for time and household management, and we'll discuss how to find the most elusive thing of all, quality time just for yourself. Sounds appealing, doesn't it? It may be helpful to have a piece of paper and a pen or pencil easily accessible because as we go through this presentation, I'll be asking you to think about certain points and ask yourself some challenging questions. Writing down your initial responses might be helpful in gaining some insight and understanding and may even be a powerful catalyst for change. Next slide. The struggle is real. Before we dive in, I'm going to encourage you to ask yourselves, what do you think the hardest part of being both a working parent and a professional is? Learning to identify what it is that we're struggling with is often half the battle when we're overwhelmed. With knowledge comes power. You'll hear me say that a few times today. Without the awareness of the challenges that we're facing, it becomes virtually impossible to make any kind of changes. It's true that many people find themselves really struggling with their idea of how their lives are supposed to look. Anybody relate to this? This is such a difficult thing to unravel. But the first and best thing we can do is become aware that we're comparing ourselves to something that's just not real, something a fantasy expectation. And after we become aware of the ideas or expectations we're holding, we can work on accepting our life as it is. Then we can take action to shift or change anything that we want to work on. During these unprecedented times of working and parenting during a global pandemic, the struggle is even more real. Lines between personal and professional lives are blurred as many people are working from home, helping kids with remote learning or homeschooling them entirely, or caring for young kiddos as daycares close and other childcare options might not be available or might not feel safe. So I've tried to incorporate this reality into the underlying message of this presentation, but keep in mind that we're currently living in really incredibly challenging and stressful times. So it's even more important to give yourself grace and treat yourself with self-compassion as you work to find the balance between working and parenting, a challenge even without the added complications that COVID's brought about. Next slide. And I forgot I should have mentioned this earlier. We'll save some time at the end for questions. So if you have questions, please hold off until we're done, and then hopefully we'll have ample time to ask them. So is balance possible? Redefining balance is an important but tricky objective. Redefining expectations of ourselves can also be challenging and scary. It can feel like I'm losing parts of my identity. Will I ever get them back? And while there's no short answer, here's some food for thought. It's crucial to keep expectations of yourself realistic. If they're unrealistic, you'll never feel okay or good enough, and you'll constantly be setting yourself up for failure right out of the gate. Our expectations, roles, and responsibilities, and our personal and professional needs change as we go through stages of life. Recognizing that we can't have everything during every stage is the first step in finding balance. Part of human nature is also to compare ourselves to other people to see how we measure up. Social media and Hollywood play huge roles in this and can be devastating for our self esteem, our self worth, and can contribute to increased anxiety, feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness, emotional overwhelm, and burnout. We also tend to compare ourselves to past versions of ourselves, especially when we're goal setting, without considering how many variables have changed. For example, when setting fitness goals for myself, I frequently set the bar way too high because I used to run triathlons and take 90-minute hot yoga classes 3 to 4 times a week. Now I'm older, I've had 3 kids, and I'm working while also parenting those 3 kids 24/7 because they aren't in daycare anymore. So I've had to work to change my expectations and goals for myself and really be realistic about what season of life I'm in. A 30-minute hike outside with the kids and the dog is often where I'm at now, or having a dance party in the living room and challenging my toddlers to timed races up and down the driveway. It still allows me to be active, burn calories, get that movement that's so important, but it just looks different than what I'm used to. So take a moment and ask yourself, what is one area in my life right now where I can redefine balance? What might that look like? Next slide, please. The word prioritize is probably one you're all familiar with and use often, especially in the workplace. When I use this word today, I want us to think about leaning into what's most important right now. This also involves a mindfulness practice because it's asking us to be present in the current moment. What we prioritize or lean into today might look different than what we lean into tomorrow. Many people are used to putting others first, but it's so important to prioritize ourselves and our own needs. So often, the term self care becomes synonymous with selfish, but it's actually the exact opposite. Self care is necessary and vital if we want to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be at home, at work, as a parent, a partner, a friend, or a coworker. So ask yourself, are there any areas of your life that you're feeling are particularly neglected currently? The goal is to help you think more critically about how you're prioritizing and how you're making choices about where you're putting your time and attention. Consider the quote, where your attention goes, energy flows, and that's what grows. What do you want to grow more of in your life? Which areas of your lives need more attention? Next slide. For all of us, managing expectations is the key to happiness, peace of mind, relationship, and life satisfaction. But this skill doesn't come easily. As humans, we tend to place incredibly high and unrealistic expectations on ourselves that might even be impossible to achieve, or at least super difficult. We're wired for that instant gratification and we want what we want and we want it like yesterday. We're also bombarded from every direction with troublesome messages from the overly optimistic, things like don't settle, everybody's a rock star, positive thinkers just attract good things to themselves, to the intentionally discouraging, don't get your hopes up, that will never change. Who do you think you are? Anybody ever heard messages like this, maybe sent messages like this to themselves or to other people? So being honest about what you and your family need is really crucial to finding more harmony. Think about what's most important to you right now and lean into that. Recognize if you're setting yourself up for failure and disappointment with super high expectations. Shifting or redefining those expectations isn't about giving yourself a hall pass to not try or to not put in effort to do your best, but it is about learning to be flexible, self-aware, and compassionate toward yourself and others. Next slide. Harmony is oftentimes dependent on organization. In my clinical practice, I work with people who generally seem to fall into several camps with regard to the impact that COVID has had on organization. The first, they recognize that most everything related to this pandemic is mostly out of their control, so they've amped up their strategies to maintain control and a semblance of organization where they can. Schedules, meal plans, decluttering the house, implementing structure around their kids' school, and any activity schedules that might still be going on. Or The feeling of overwhelm with everything has become so significant that organization has virtually gone out the window, and they're often in straight survival mode or some combination of the two. I find that it's helpful to incorporate balance even into organization. There's research that has proven that having an organized and non-chaotic physical environment can help reduce anxiety, but it's also incredibly justified to only have so much energy to constantly follow your kids around who are like tiny Tasmanian devils and leave straight destruction in their wakes and pick up after them just in order to maintain this semblance of order. I like to think of the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, try to keep your environment somewhat organized and decluttered, and the other 20% of the time, work on harnessing your inner Elsa and let it go. Consider simple fixes like organizational baskets near the front or back door of your house for things that you use every day, hooks to hang your keys on by the door, toy bins to throw your kids' 8 million toys in that reduce at least the appearance of clutter. Easy things to improve your workflow at home. Also, improve your organization at work. Create folders for your inbox and files that you use often. Find storage that's useful and space savers for items on your desk. Maybe taking 20 minutes scheduled at the end of every workday would be helpful to finish up tasks and leave your desk neat and tidy, and that could improve how you start the following day. Scheduling. Scheduling is huge. It's so important to a family's functioning. As humans, we function better when we know what to expect. Kids also function better with predictable structures. So make sure that you and your family have a calendar that you put things on, and make sure you're also scheduling fun things to do on that calendar. Involve all the family members in the planning and scheduling process if it's possible. Make sure that you're checking in with everyone about weekly or monthly plans so there's few surprises as possible. Particularly in this time of COVID, when parents are maybe working from home and kids are bouncing back and forth from in-person school to remote school, and Zoom meetings are a daily occurrence in some capacity, I cannot stress the importance of scheduling enough. I know families who use chalkboard or whiteboard calendars for weekly meal planning. We do that in my family, and it is incredibly helpful for appointments and for important reminders. I also know families who use a shared online calendar like Google so that everyone has easy access to read and edit. So whether you're old school or super tech savvy, whatever method that you choose, making sure that everyone's literally on the same page is key. So ask yourself, where do you think that you could bring more efficiency and organization to your lives and routine? Next slide. Many households have one person who does most of the work. If that's you, think about how you might approach asking your family for some help. You might need to be really specific about what you want your partner or your child or your other family members to do. They probably don't see the house like you do, and it's not fair to expect them to be mind readers and know what you need. Asking for this kind of shift can be really hard, and it will likely take some time and it might be met with resistance at first, but it's worth it. Healthy relationships and healthy families are built on a foundation of equality, healthy boundaries, assertive communication, and adequate self-care. One person trying to do everything is not just a recipe for burnout, but it shifts the dynamics and can create a really unbalanced family system. Do you feel comfortable with how household tasks are done around your house? If not, it's never too late to begin making some extra changes. Keeping in mind that this can be really tricky and really challenging, you might also want to consider reaching out to a therapist for some extra support and guidance. Next slide, please. When we want to improve balance, we need to think really critically about what we're willing to change. Willingness is key to any kind of change that we want or need to make. In order for change to be successful and long lasting, the desire to change has to come from within. So take an inventory of your willingness and see what you think you're willing to commit to changing or shifting currently. Maybe it's things like improving basic self-care or organization or scheduling. Maybe it's asking for help, some assistance in taking something off of your plate. Just remember that willingness is different than ability. Just because you have the ability to do something doesn't mean that you're actually really willing to do it. Next slide. Getting creative with our obligations and responsibilities can be hugely helpful in achieving the seemingly elusive harmony that I keep referring to. So ask yourself these questions to shorten your to-do list. Can you minimize your time commitment to the item on your list? Like, can you make a face-to-face meeting a phone call instead? Is this a reoccurring task? Like, can you do most of your grocery shopping online, saving yourself a trip to the grocery store? I feel like these first two are probably much more prevalent in COVID times than they ever have been before. Can you give yourself permission to be lazy? Can you do just a satisfactory job on housework and let go of any perfectionism? Can you just vacuum up the dog hair and leave the dust for later? Can you throw the dishes in the dishwasher, leave everything else on the counter for tomorrow? Is this something that will be important a month from now? Considering if something has long-term benefits is important. If it does, lean in. And if it doesn't, let it go and move on. Is this a social obligation? Then ask yourself if it's really important to you, or are you doing it simply to please someone else? What's your purpose with this activity? Can you ease the burden on yourself? For example, if you're hosting family for a holiday or a get together, you don't need to prepare all the food yourself. You can order out. If you're making treats for your kid's birthday party, back when those were actually a thing, you don't need to go to Hobby Lobby and buy half the store's cake decorating supplies just to make a fancy 4-layered lumberjack cake that won't turn out anyway. You can just make the cupcakes with frosting and they'll be just as pumped, I promise. And yes, that was a personal story. I did that for my child's first birthday and I will never do that again. Lesson learned. Asking for help can be incredibly difficult. Most of us like to feel like we have it all together, but humans are a herd species. We're designed to live and work together, and we need that interdependentness in order to function. Being assertive and asking for what we need is key to self-preservation. Lastly, break your to-do list down into manageable time frames. Consider incorporating even small tasks into your to-do list just so you can cross them off. I don't know about anyone else, but crossing things off of a list, even if they're as mundane as take a shower and eat breakfast, is so satisfying to me and makes me feel accomplished. Can you think of ways that you might be able to lighten your to-do list? Next slide, please. Self-care. This is probably one of my most favorite topics, and I wish I could do an entire presentation just on self-care and how important it is. This is probably also one of the most common struggles that I hear about from clients in my clinical practice. Also in my personal circle, my friends and family and myself. It's hard. It's hard to find time to devote just to yourself with the demands of work, parenting, caregiving for family members, and so many other responsibilities that we might be juggling. And since the start of the pandemic, the majority of people that I work with have basically seen self-care go out the window. Whether it's trying to navigate working from home, helping kids with remote learning, losing financial stability, or losing access to self-care strategies altogether, like the gym, social gatherings with friends, church, finding and maintaining a self-care practice is even more difficult. But again, it's vital. It sends the message to ourselves that we're worthy, that we are valuable, that our overall health matters. It helps with stress management. It reduces anxiety and depression. It boosts confidence and self-esteem. It makes us more resilient. And through modeling self-care, it teaches our kids that this practice is important in ways that are far more powerful than anything they will learn about it from a book or a class. I fully recognize that for many people, this might seem totally impossible. I promise you, it's not. It may and will likely require a significant shift in how you're currently operating, and it will probably be uncomfortable at first. But if you are willing to put boundaries around your time and your needs, I can assure you it is possible. And when you're working to become the healthiest version of yourself that you can be, you're better able to extend that to others in your life, and you'll be a better employee, a better boss, a better partner, parent, and friend. So take a moment and ask yourself what you would like to do with time just for yourself. How are you going to make time for it? And what can you do to prioritize this time? Next slide, please. Asking for what you want or what you need in any area of life can be scary, but especially at work. So when you're prepping for a conversation like this, make sure that you're prepared with specific requests, specific details, and specific outcomes. You want to reassure your boss or HR that you've thought through all of the options and that you're prepared to make this new situation really work for everyone. Also, consider selling your request by highlighting how it will positively impact the agency or the workplace. So, for example, working from home 1 day a week would allow me to maximize productivity and streamline projects without the frequent interruptions by coworkers, rather than it would be really beneficial for me to be able to stay home 1 day a week with my kids. Consider the 5% solution. Rather than trying to find balance through drastic changes like going part-time or changing jobs, try making small changes like leaving early once every other week or taking a little longer lunch to run a couple of errands occasionally. It's likely that these changes are just small enough that they won't affect your performance, but they may give you the feeling of flexibility that so many of us thrive on. It's really important to set and enforce boundaries around your arrangements, whatever they are. If you say that you're going to leave early, then leave early. Not following through with boundaries can send mixed messages and be really confusing to your psyche, not to mention to your coworkers and to your employer. Next slide, please. So here are 20 things you can do to create ease and space in your life. Many of them are one-time things, but a lot of them aren't. And this list is obviously far from comprehensive, but it's just here to give you some ideas to get started thinking. Some of these may not be possible for various reasons due to the pandemic we're living in, but there's still an opportunity to get creative and make accommodations that could work. So instead of going to the gym for an exercise class, you could sign up for a live stream and Zoom into one. So there's still that accountability feature. You're still working out with other people just from the safety of your own home. Rather than planning a date night out, you could plan a date night or a family fun night in, make a fun dinner, stock up on favorite snacks, rent a movie, bust out those board games that have been collecting dust on the shelf. So think about which of these ideas, if any, could you see yourself doing? Which do you want to do, but think that for some reason you can't? Over the course of this presentation so far, have you learned any strategies to help you overcome the barriers to doing these things? I really want to encourage you to lean into the idea that you can use your time and resources to take better care of yourself, to reduce stress, and to have more fun, even while you're busy and feeling incredibly overwhelmed. Next slide. It's unlikely that the majority of demands that are put on us are going to go away anytime soon, if ever. Things like parenting, work, financial responsibility, right? So we need to find ways to balance it all and to still maintain our health. These basics are not rocket science, and they're certainly things you've probably heard a million times before. It's a good reminder that our physical health is so closely connected to our mental health. So if we take care of our bodies, our minds are positively impacted as well. So things like getting enough sleep, eating nutritional food, moving your body every day. I also want to really emphasize the importance of connection. Through this pandemic, that's been really hard for a lot of people. So many people have been existing in isolation or within really super small bubbles. So get creative with how you connect with people, but don't neglect this altogether. For example, consider using FaceTime or video chat rather than just phone calls. Schedule a Zoom happy hour or a Saturday morning coffee date with friends and family. If you haven't heard of it, I'm not um, selling this for any reasons other than my own personal experience with it, but the Marco Polo app. I thought it was new. It is evidently a good 5 years old, but it allows you to send video messages to people so that they can watch and respond to them when it's convenient for them. I love it because scheduling FaceTime dates with anyone, well, I have my own children, and with anyone who has children of their own as well, is virtually impossible to coordinate schedules. Um, so this is a great way to be able to still see people's faces rather than just texting or making a phone call, which to me has been an incredibly powerful, although different, form of connection. Which of these areas do you think that you need to focus on? Can you commit to implementing some strategies to improve on them in the very near future? Next slide, please. We all know that we're supposed to take care of ourselves, right? But learning to identify the areas where we need the most help is really an important area of insight. Again, with knowledge comes power. When we know better, we can do better. So learning to take better care of ourselves can involve pushing against some serious resistance and bad habits. Sometimes those bad habits have been around for our entire lives. Sometimes they're newly established habits. But if we can start to pay attention to areas that are lacking and learn to lean into the areas that persistently need more attention, we can gain that insight and start making changes to become healthier all around. But it's just as important to give yourself credit for what you're already doing and striving to achieve. Acknowledge what you're doing well, even if it seems small, and validate yourself for doing it. Even just a little bit of positive reinforcement can propel us to keep moving in the right direction. Validation is a need that we all share as humans. And if we're able to learn ways to meet that need of validation for ourselves, we are so much better off. Next slide, please. So I want to emphasize again that working is hard. Being a parent is hard. Both of those together is beyond hard. And during these unprecedented times where many people are functioning in both of those roles almost simultaneously, and in less than ideal circumstances, while everything is being done virtually, like trying to conduct a Zoom meeting while your kids are melting down over the one truck that they both want. The baby's crying because he was woken up early from his nap by the dog barking, and your internet connection is unstable. But the upside, the commute is way shorter. Kids' lunches and your lunches don't have to be packed every night. Real pants are a thing of the past. And you might only have to do the front half of your hair. Hey, it's all about silver linings, right? So remember that organization is key to trying to find and maintain balance. This is important. Being proactive and staying on top of it can make your life less chaotic, can reduce unnecessary stress. And let's be honest, I think that we could all use just about any tools to reduce stress and chaos at this point. No one's expecting you to be superhuman. Not a single person can do everything all of the time and do it well. Practice assertive communication and ask for what you need. Take care of yourself. This means, again, getting adequate sleep, eating balanced and nutritious meals, moving your body every day. It also means taking care of your mental health. Find ways to stay grounded, present in the moment, not stuck in the past or hyper focused on the future where there are so many unknowns. Connect in some way with other humans. Connect with a therapist if you feel like you're struggling with your mental health or you just need some tools to improve it. Self-care, I could get back on my soapbox here, but for the sake of time, I'll just say this. Take time for yourself every single day. It doesn't have to be a long time. Even just a few minutes is beneficial. You are worth it. Consider thinking outside of the box and maybe outside of the constraints of a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 work environment if that's not working for you. Start conversations with people that are necessary to help you figure out what is possible and realistic. Objectively analyze what needs to change in both your home and your work lives to help you feel more balanced and in better harmony so that you can be even more productive, more present and engaged, and a healthier and a happier version of you. Next slide. Here's some additional resources if you're looking for more information on this topic. I have not read either of them myself, but I did look into them when I was preparing for this, and they look fantastic. I would encourage you to consider exploring them. Next slide, please. And lastly, I want to leave you with this metaphor from neuropsychiatrist Dan Siegel, who is one of my career, he's phenomenal in the psychological world. In his book, The Whole Brain Child. So imagine a peaceful river running through the countryside. That's your river of well-being. Whenever you're in the water, peacefully floating along in your canoe, you feel like you're generally in a good relationship and a good state of balance with the world around you. You have a healthy level of self-awareness, positive relationships with people around you, and overall feel like you have a pretty good handle on life. You're stable and at peace. Sometimes, though, as you float along, you get too close to one of the river's two banks, which can disrupt your balance and create problems. One bank represents chaos, where you feel out of control, and instead of floating in the peaceful river, you get caught up in the pull of the rapids, and confusion and turmoil can take over. It's important to move away from the bank of chaos and get back into the gentle flow of the river. But don't go too far, because the other bank isn't ideal either. It's the bank of rigidity, the opposite of chaos. So instead of being out of control, rigidity is when you are imposing control on everything and everyone around you. You become completely unwilling to adapt, to compromise, or to negotiate. There is no adaptability or flexibility. We all move back and forth between the two banks as we go through our days, and we navigate the challenges of being a parent and a working professional, while also dealing with the insanity of a global pandemic. But when we're the closest to the banks of chaos or rigidity, we are farthest from mental and emotional health. So using some of the strategies that we explored today, as well as any others that you might already have found that work for you, really help us to stay within the flow of well-being and allow us to move into a more integrated state, finding that elusive balance that we are all searching for. Next slide. So now I'm going to throw everything, lift everything on its top, throw it around, create some chaos in your mind, and tell you that there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's all life. The balance has to be within you. So using some of the strategies that we've talked about today, I would really encourage you to shift your mindset, to affirm yourself that these are hard times, that what you're doing is challenging, but you do have the strengths, you do have the resources, and you do have the ability, if the willingness is there as well, to make the changes to find the balance. Okay, last slide. That is, thank you all so much for the kind thoughts, kind words. I really appreciate it.